You know, I think about us, the three of us, what we could be. I think about it all the time.
Please. It's terrible.
No, it's not. I know June. She's my friend. I care about her. How's your day going? You look pretty.
Thanks. I wore it just for you. Her father's a driver named Nick. He helped me to survive. Yes, you can, because I can't lose you.
I'm not gonna let anything happen to you.
What about you?
Your girlfriend is a badass.
Welcome to Above the Garage, a Nick and June, the Handmaid's Tale podcast. Hi, friends. Welcome to our deep dive into Season 2, Episode 10 of The Handmaid's Tale, which is entitled The Last Ceremony. Let's do our round of introductions and dive in.
Hi, I'm Scarlett.
Hi, I'm Marigold.
Hi, I'm Ginger.
Hi, I'm Megan.
And I'm Kate. Okay, so who's got notes? I was just Googling what the heads in the market were, and there were sheep heads.
But what were they like? What were they for?
Broth?
Just here's your sheep head?
Yeah.
I was just trying to, weren't they at the butcher? So why would
Do people eat them?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Do you put it in a stew? Is it Gilead sheep head stew?
I think that when the episode came out, I don't remember if I read a recap or something that said that was to show, you know, they were talking about the trade stuff and with Mexico with the handmaids. And we've seen in a few episodes that they have oranges and stuff like that. I remember reading something about there was something going on with the food. And I know Fred mentions in a future episode something about that. The market looks bare. And I think in season 3, the markets keep looking like there's less stuff.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Which is funny because then when she gets to Canada and she's like amazed that there's so many chips, like there's just so many. So like that's an interesting thing, I guess, where Gilead has like nothing, and then you get to a place where, you know, they're free and they have way too much stuff.
I mean, potato chips.
Yeah. So in the beginning of the episode, when June and Emily are talking about Oliver, that it was foreshadowing because Emily says she doesn't feel like his mom anymore. And June says, you are his mother, you love him. And then Emily's like, do you think he feels that? I feel like, again, that kind of foreshadows to Hannah where she sees June and like it, you know, she's mad at June. And it's like, you kind of wonder, like, does she feel that June loved her? So then I think of the Angel's Flight kids and what we see happen with them in season 4, where you get these kids out and, you know, now they're free, right? That's what June said to Emily, like, you know, Oliver's out, he's free. And you see like, okay, now these kids are free, but they're not happy because they were separated from their parents. So I feel like there's a lot of themes here with like the concept of you're a child's mother, but Gilead has done damage to them for so many years that it's a paradox, I guess, to think that like a mother or a parent can feel such a strong love for their child, but after what's happened to them, like it might be too late to ever have that relationship again, you know, like it's too traumatizing. And I think like this reunion of June seeing Hannah, like she's desperately wanted to see her, right? But it's going to be traumatizing for the two of them, right? And then we see in season 3 in the first episode, like where June goes to see Hannah when she's sleeping, and June sees her, but she's traumatized again because every time she sees her, it's like a tease, like here's my baby, but I can't have her back, right? And then she sees her again in 403 when she's in the box and Hannah doesn't remember her. So again, like this is another traumatizing moment for June to have her daughter at arm's length and she can't have her. And that's getting worse every time. And so it makes me think of like, you know, where the future is going with the show, what we're going to see in season 5. But it's just so sad and painful, like this whole parenting journey here, like that June goes on, because it's so traumatizing every time she sees her. So it's like, if you think about it logically, she should just stop, right? But how do you tell
right, like what Lawrence says, she's good right now, you know, you're making it harder for her. And then I think she realizes eventually that she kind of is, you know, it's a little bit of this, a little bit of that. You need to be all the way. That push.
Right. But then how do you tell a mother to just stop? How do you
don't.
And even as a mother, how do you turn off that instinct to want to get your baby? So there's no, like, it's just sad because there's no easy answer here. Either you keep seeing her, you're all re-traumatized every time, or you stop, but you have to let go of your child and just know that they're in this hellhole being forced to do or see awful things, and you can't do anything about it, you know?
Because it's Gilead, I think she's doing the right thing, even though it's traumatizing. Because like you said, you're not even just being hit occasionally and gonna get married off to some gross old man. I mean, you're seeing people get hung regularly, and the whole life, you know, it's better to traumatize her and keep trying, I think, than.
But then look at Esther. She was 14, Mrs. Keys, and the things that she had to endure.
Right. Gang rapes. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, even though you probably should let go, how do you let go?
You can't when you know they're in hell.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't let go when you know your child is in a place that will brutalize her and terrorize her until she, you know, she's going to have to just try to get her and try to keep, it's the lesser of the two traumas.
Right. Like it's one thing if you're like giving your child up for adoption where you know they're going to go with a family,
good family,
they'll have a good life. It's another thing to know I'm giving my child up, but she could possibly be raped and brutalized and God knows what else, you know?
No.
Yeah.
And she didn't voluntarily give up her daughter. It was taken away from her. So it's also different. Like,
her child was kidnapped.
Exactly. Going on to what Ginger was saying, because she's talking about that Emily scene, June also tells her, you're going to see your son again. And that kind of foreshadows to the fact that Emily does make it to Canada. And she does get to see her son again.
Right. And I hope that now, I'd really love to see Janine and Charlotte get out and be with Emily. Oh, that would make me really happy. My notes are, I'm just so glad she murdered Fred. And now I want her to murder Serena the same way, but way slower. And this episode made me so much angrier watching it than I did initially. Maybe it's because people have been defending her recently. And then you watch the scene and you're like, you can't defend that violent rape. I mean, there are enough things she's done that you cannot defend. But this one is just, it was very painful watching it again. I do not watch a lot of scenes. And this is one of them. And it was horrible. And yeah, like you said, she was supposed to hold her neck down on top of all that. It doesn't matter. It's maximum worse to me, actually, already. But Jialin Chang said about the rape scene that she wrote that she wanted it to be that horrible to watch. And that Fred and Serena's reaction to her resisting was actually like they were really shocked. It catches them by surprise because they've done the ceremony 100 times. And that's not how this is supposed to go. The fact that she's actually a woman with agency over her own body and might have her own reaction, that just does not compute to them. It doesn't make any sense to them in this context. And she said I felt like it was important to show that this has always been rape and that it's always this terrible for the handmaids every single time. It's always this brutal. It's just that the handmaids have been trained to not let you, the viewer, see it and to make it easy on people, but it's not easy on them. It's this terrible for them every time. And she said that like during it, she's trying to disassociate, but she's having a really hard time doing it. She's out of practice and she's pregnant and she's very much in her body and she's struggling to disassociate. And I noticed that too, because it looks like she finally is and then she's not. And then afterwards, she's just like catatonic.
I think it's also easier to dissociate when you know it's coming versus thinking you're pregnant and you have a get out of jail free card, you know?
When it was prescribed or whatever they call it, it was a prescribed rape.
What happened to her rape charge in Canada? Did that just disappear off of the face of the earth for some reason?
I always wondered that too, because I mean, no, right? But did Fred we didn't see it be a part of the plea deal, but I think when he went to talk to Serena, he was like, I will make sure that you're okay. So it must have been.
She didn't rape him. So, I mean, June's in Canada.
I'm just saying it was part of getting Fred was to let go of those charges, you know?
Yeah. No, but I feel like June should be able to keep that charge on the table since she was the one that was raped. Well, was it about her making Nick and June have sex? Or it wasn't about this rape, right?
No.
Wow.
He says your driver, you forced your driver to impregnate Mrs.
Osborne.
I mean, probably because like they could do a DNA test and they could, easily prove that. So
I think she should go for the rape charge, but I guess she's not going to.
I put in my notes that it's ironic that Serena had Fred rape June, because really, if she hadn't have Fred rape her, June would probably have given birth at home.
Yeah.
But because Fred like felt an ounce of remorse and gave June this, surprise, June would have been at home and Serena would have had her moment.
Right.
Her moment.
It is really funny that she didn't get her moment after that. She only got her fake moment.
Once again, though, Serena is shooting herself in the foot, like ruining her own happiness.
Makes bad choices for herself.
I have the June conversation that she has with Fred when she tells him that he was never going to find out what it is to have a son of his own or a child of his own. And she really does it.
Makes sure.
She kills him. So he's not gonna know what it is like to have a son of his own, a child of his own. But also I remember what they were talking about in 410 when she goes to visit him in the fancy cell. They do this whole monologue, but then he says, yeah, there were discomforts in my house, I know, for both of us. More for you, of course. And for that, I do have deep regrets. I don't know that I was able to fully appreciate your situation until now. As a father, to have my son taken away from me would be unimaginable. You must have experienced such terrible longing for your daughter. And for that, I'm sorry. Truly, deeply sorry. Motherfucker.
Yeah.
That's when she decided to kill him.
Yeah.
It's poetic, though, because I love that June says to him, you have no idea what it's like to have a child of your own flesh and blood, and you never will. And then she's the reason why he truly will never know what it's like to have his own child, because of what happens in the finale where she kills him.
Yeah.
She's like, I made a promise once. I got to keep it.
Yeah. And she kept that promise. And I love that.
I do too.
I also have two parallels to season 4 when Aunt Lydia was using scripture to June when she was having her contractions. It reminded me of in 403 when Nick was using scripture to June, basically also to like tell her to be strong, but in a different way.
They were similar, right?
Yeah.
Kind of like strength of the Lord.
Yeah, very similar, verses. And then the parallel of June to Hannah saying, I need you to keep yourself safe, reminded me of 409 when Nick said that to June. So just being a protector of her.
I had that too. And she also tells her to enjoy her life, which was similar to his try and be happy. So
yeah, and I had that too. And I think it's basically June is saying this to Hannah because she knows she can't be there to do that. Right. And the Nick says that to June because he knows he can't be there to protect her. So like I really love that parallel.
Yeah.
Do we think that Hannah in season 4 doesn't remember June? I wanted to know what you guys think.
I think she does.
I think she does too.
She's been traumatized by her enough that I think she remembers her.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd say she doesn't. I don't know. Sometimes I think she doesn't remember her, but then other times I think she's just, first of all, she's sitting there in a box, right?
Yeah, a glass box.
Yeah. And then second of all, like, I think at this point she's been told, wait, especially after knowing like how pissed Mrs. Mackenzie was in season 3 when June went there.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure after that, and I think even doesn't the Martha say in that season to June, like, you traumatized her. It took a long time to get her to stop having nightmares after all that. So like, I think after that, I bet you they really doubled down on brainwashing her, or at least like talking bad about June. So even if she remembers her, I think she probably was just like, I've heard so many bad things about you now, so I can't trust you, you know?
And not to mention, she's just been tortured for like a week and she looks terrible, right? I mean, she looks terrifying. Yeah. So that would matter, I think, to add to the terror.
I just don't think she would have forgotten that, the scene that we saw now. Like, obviously they spinned it for her and they added things and she's a child, but just like she couldn't forget, June getting hit in the head. She's not going to be able to, she's 8. She's not going to be able to forget that, she saw her mother. So I don't think that she forgot her.
I think she might have forgotten Luke at this point, just because it's been 7 years and she was 4 years old.
Yeah, I could believe that.
Hopefully she has some memory of him, but had she not seen June in all these, in this scene, then I would be more scared about her not remembering June. I remember like, I don't know, I had this fear as a young mom of like dying before my kids could remember me. Like it was an actual like, thing that I worried about. Like I wanted to get to the age of like 6. Like I did it. They're gonna remember me now. But it's weird. I thought about it like a lot and how heartbreaking it would be. You know? Well, that was a downer. Sorry.
Well, okay. Well, I'll bring an upper.
Yeah.
So I love the ambulance scene, right? Where Nick and June, again, like heart eyes, and they don't care that like a million people are watching them, and they're just in love. And it just reminds me of how comical it is throughout this and the rest of the series, where Nick becomes a commander, and it's like everybody seems to forget that he lived in the Waterford house.
Yes.
Like it's, and they still let him arrest June, which is funny to me. And it just seems like like Lawrence immediately in 3-3 he clocked those two as being in love with just seeing them
with one look
and then at Lydia in 403 where she's like trying to comfort Nick with the when he's in the van with her. So it's like it's obvious that people catch on, but yet I don't know. Maybe it's just the arrogance of these commanders or what, but like no one seems to think like maybe we shouldn't let Nick be the one to arrest June. Maybe we shouldn't let those two be anywhere near each other. Oh, wait a minute. Nick is now the father of her baby. But yet they still, it's just comical to me that like.
The only people he's ever been associated with are the Waterford traders, June, number one Gilead enemy, and Lawrence, who helped June with the Angel's Flight. Like there's nothing not suspicious about him.
But I assume that it's probably rumored in Gilead that Nick is the father, but not confirmed. I mean, I know that June gave her testimony, but is it common knowledge in Gilead? I don't know.
I hope we find out because I feel like it should be at this point, but
it should be, yeah.
And then I also love the parallel, like where, Serena runs down the stairs and is all happy that we did it, June, like we're having a baby. And then like June is clearly pissed, and then her and Nick, and it's like the middle finger to Serena, like to continue their little happy journey up the stairs. And I love the parallel of Nick and June making out in front of Fred in 410 as a fuck you, like we still made it and we're together. I love that parallel of them basically giving the middle finger to each of them on 2 separate occasions.
So the title of the episode, The Last Ceremony, obviously, relates to June, but it also relates to Emily because after the commander died, she goes to Lawrence's house where she doesn't have to do any more ceremony. So this was her last ceremony.
Oh, that's why they started it with her. That makes a lot of sense. It's always more than one meaning, and I need to think about that when we're doing our notes. And I love that about it.
Thinking about Emily, I'm thinking of that scene in the beginning with June and Emily in the store, and June mentions that Oliver is free in Canada with her wife. And June sounds so hopeful, like freedom is such a wonderful, like that concept sounds so wonderful, right? Like you guys being free in Canada.
Yeah.
And, that was her goal. And then later on when June is free in Canada with her husband, like she realizes how complicated that is.
Yeah.
And it's like, again, like the paradox of I'm free, yet she feels trapped.
Right. It sucks because now there's no answer for her. That's what you've been dreaming of for so long, and you get there and it's not at all what you want. Then what do you do?
Like the grass is always greener scenario.
Right. I mean, it'd be easier, obviously, if like I still think for Emily, at least her child is there and she could probably find a way to forge a life of happiness.
Yeah.
Whether it's with Sylvia or not, like unrelated to the spouse. But for June, that's just not an option when your child's in Gilead.
No.
On top of your problems in Canada. So.
And I also like the parallel of, the whole June and Hannah meeting and then Nick being there to witness all that.
Yeah.
Like we talked about like how much trauma like June was put through in this episode, forgetting about everything else just as happened before this episode. But the fact that she is still standing after that because she has him to cling to, like shows how deep their bond is with each other. And I immediately last night, as soon as I was watching that, I was thinking of episode 3-5 where June does the tape for Luke and says,
he helped me to survive.
He helped me to survive. Because he did. I mean, and to me, like, it's almost not a love triangle because I think it's pretty obvious that these two are it for each other, you know? And you know, we all talk about like, they've been through so much together and that bond is so strong. And this episode to me really just drives that home, because how could anybody understand that situation but Nick, like watching what she had to go through? Like, you know, in episode, what is it, 4-7, where June is telling Luke about seeing Hannah, and Luke is upset because obviously like hearing the things that she said, like where she got mad, that breaks his heart too. But he's hearing this secondhand from June, whereas Nick actually witnessed that.
Right.
So like Luke will never be, even if he was in Gilead, he would still never be able to understand what it was actually like to see that play out and see the heartbreak of your wife and your daughter.
Right.
And that pain, you know?
Right.
And going off of that, you know, Luke also, it's easier for him to think of the idea of moving on with June and like trying to live their life with Nicole and Hannah's in Gilead. And he definitely wants to get her back, but he doesn't seem it's not urgent to him, I guess. And, you know, for June, like she sees what Hannah has gone through. She knows what she's living, you know, she knows what it's like in Gilead. And, you know, I think it's just easier for Luke to not get this because he hasn't witnessed this. And I think, again, it kind of goes back to the bond that Nick and June have, that, you know, in episode 4 and 9, where Nick brings June all that information on Hannah, he does that because obviously he knows how much he loves her. But again, I think this scene sticks in his mind, like why he knows that she'll never be able to give her up, and why he goes and proactively gets that information, because he sees that pain. Plus he himself has also had a child taken away from him. Even though she's in Canada free, he still had that child taken away.
Right.
So that's why, I guess, to me, like, I'll never buy into the love triangle, really, because it's very clear that this bond between these two, nobody can ever even touch or come close to.
No.
Yeah. And I think that this moment at the end of the scene not only showed that bond and the depth of that bond, but it deepened it, like you're saying, basically, because I mean, that's a huge moment in her life that he's experienced with her. And he feels like he knows Hannah now too, even though they didn't like talk, he does. And I think that, like I said before, I think it'll be as important to him to get Hannah out too. And maybe even more urgent than Luke, because he hasn't lived in Gilead the way, you know, he hasn't walked by bodies on the wall and seen people hanging from trees and watched children being raped by old men. Like you said, like everything is more real when you see it, no matter what.
Yeah.
So I think this was a pretty big moment. I mean, obviously I already thought that they were end game in love, but I think that this moment really deepened that even further.
Yeah.
As heartbreaking as it was. Oh, we were talking earlier about thinking that Nick was dead.
Yeah.
I thought Nick was shot at the end of this episode when I saw it the first time.
Yeah, I did too.
And that was very sad for me because I like Nick. And
do you?
Yeah, he's all right.
Well, even in the next episode, they really never tell you
I was about
exactly
to say
what happens to him. So,
Yeah.
I mean, we still are just left wondering what happened to Nick.
And I have to imagine that June is feeling the same way.
Yeah.
So Hannah's just been ripped away. Nick has been maybe shot, maybe not, but either way, he's dragged into a car unconscious.
Yeah. No wonder she went into labor. So much stress.
Yeah, that's
right.
Oh my God. So
does anybody have any speculation on what did happen to Nick? Like, seriously, what did happen to
The only thing that they say is like he's talking to that weird, creepy commander, the guy that said that his handmaid was past her expiration date and it wasn't too much fun. And he said, when Nick comes in, Fred says he's a real hero. There was a misunderstanding with some overzealous guardians, but Nick protected our child. And then Fred tells Nick, you handled the situation at that house with discretion. Thank you for taking care of it, sir. We always look out for each other, don't we? So I guess that's, you know, they protected each other, I guess.
They swept it under the rug because Fred didn't want to out himself for letting June go and see.
And Nick obviously wanted to protect June as well. So yeah.
It's kind of like her first escape was a kidnapping. Yeah.
That's the only thing that they talk about. They don't really acknowledge what happened or why did they want to shoot him or like that.
How long was June at the house before?
A day.
Just one day?
I think it was
so.
like maybe 2 days, like
Yeah.
in between a day, because Fred and Serena go to look for her and she hides. So she was in labor for like Jesus, like the whole day. And obviously, you know, when she realizes that she won't be able to get away, that's when she shoots up so somebody can come get her.
I just feel like Nick would have come back one way or another if he was not being held somewhere. You know?
Yeah, I feel like he was held somewhere for
however long
until she got back. Yeah.
Same.
She even said that, right? In the next episode. Was it, I forget if she said it or if it was in the script, but it was cut. Where she said if your father, she was talking to the baby and she said if your father could be here, he would be.
It was cut. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was cut.
Man, why couldn't they? If he could have been there during that, I would have liked that the most, more than her being on.
I know, the whole time I watched that episode the first time, I'm like, why can't he just be here? Why can't we have this one moment?
Yeah,
because he can't get anything good.
I kind of hate that was their best moment for escape though, with Hannah. He could have just shot the Guardian and gone. And you know, when he says that, I know this is a stupid question, but when he says that in 409, and he's like, I should have just run away with you when I had the chance. What is he talking about? When was this chance?
It has to be this though, because this is really, but then again, like Nick is a planner, right? And like trying to wing it to get out is pretty darn risky. And he's not usually like,
he should have, this was his chance and he should have done it. But
I think he realized that.
Also, I don't know what it's like from their fourth. Maybe there's checkpoints everywhere, but
there is. We know. I mean, there's checkpoints. They would have never made it.
But they had Hannah.
He can take off guns blazing, and somebody's gonna find him. He's gonna have to zoom past. You can't sit there and drive through the forest. You're gonna hit a tree. I mean,
know.
He has to find a road.
I mean, Moira just got in a car in Boston and managed to make it to Canada.
Man, she
still was lucky though. Yeah.
I don't know. But there was a handmaid.
She didn't have a child, like Precious had a child with her either, you know. I do think when he says that to her though, I do think that's probably what he's thinking of. Like he really regrets.
So I'm not the only one that thought about this?
No, I have, because it
doesn't make sense because there was no moment.
Thought about it too, yeah.
Yeah, there was no time that he really could do this and it was going to work. I don't think it would have worked, but I think
he just says that too, because he even said that during the ice scene before they were even. He's like, I wish I would have just driven away with you. So he says these.
But
things.
in this moment, he says, "When I had the chance," and that is a strange way to phrase it. That is my opinion on the matter, and this is the only moment
because that
applies.
Was his best chance. But realistically, I don't think it would have been successful.
No,
hindsight is 2020, right? So I think looking back, he's like,
this is the best moment.
Like especially in that moment where he finally has June and Nicole
and Hannah.
Yeah.
And
no,
Nicole,
I think in 409 when he actually is there with his love and his daughter, like, and that longing is so strong. Like it's easy to look back and be like, oh shit, I should have just done it. Like we could have, been living happily ever after in Canada. But realistically, I just don't think it would have worked out.
As it was happening, I don't think it was computing to do that. I think when he looked back at it, he's like, oh crap, I'd had the chance. Could have taken the chance.
I feel like it could be a really real regret for him. Were this real life? And you'd have to wonder, could I have made it? I had everybody there. I had Holly and June and Hannah, and I only had to kill 2 people.
Yeah.
Martha with you.
Yeah. But I mentioned in the spoiler free that like I think when he was watching June and Hannah, like he might have been formulating a plan of like, how can I get these 2 out? But I also think like in that moment, he's not going to be like, well, shit, I should just do it now with no plan, because that's not how he operates. But he's also looking at these 2 and like he wants to protect them. Right. So trying to get June and Hannah out with no plan when it's highly risky, and like people know that this Guardian and this Martha, I'm sure they know that the Guardian, the Martha and Hannah are here, or at least not home. And like he knows that there's a limited amount of time that Fred gave him where Serena's not going to catch them.
3 hours.
Yeah, so he's
He has
probably
an hour and a half to get ahead, and he'll be 3 hours
I know, but
away
I
from
feel
them.
like in that moment, after what he just witnessed between June and Hannah, I don't think he's thinking like I should just take this risk and get out now. Like I should wait until I have a plan.
Yeah, that's Nick.
So it's
Right.
they don't
And
get killed.
she's heavily pregnant too.
Yeah, she's gonna go into labor.
Something that impulsive probably wouldn't have ended well.
Yeah.
409 destroyed me that episode. Like, and when he's talking about running away with her, and I kept thinking about it. Like, you could have, like, right now, like, I know you regret it in the past, and I understand it was tough back then. Right now, you're already out. Just
maybe this is the moment he was talking about. He was already regretting that.
Maybe. It. I mean, what were those Secret Service agents going to do? Were they going to do anything?
I would have thought like they would have gone inside with them too. Cause
and maybe he wasn't Nick. Maybe Putnam found out, or Calhoun, and they went instead. And they're
maybe somebody just really trusts Nick Blaine for some reason. We do not know.
Exactly what I was going to say.
But you can't trust Gilead because someone could have overheard the call or caught him on the way out. I agree. Like, knowing it's Nick, we know it's safe, but
maybe something's holding him back in Gilead, and I don't mean the wife.
I mean,
maybe there's some. I've always felt that he feels that he doesn't have a life outside of Gilead. I don't know if that's going to show in the next seasons or not, but that's always the impression that it gave me. And then I also maybe think, after season 3, there was some sort of maybe deal that he made at some point, and he just can't leave. Then there's Hannah too. So I mean, hopefully they'll show exactly why he can't leave, because if they were willing to give Fred a deal, why wouldn't they give Nick a deal? He hasn't done anything worse than what Fred did.
No, and he has plenty of intel.
Maybe he has to stay because that's part of the bargain with another government that he's working with.
That better be the reason.
Who's he working for? Maybe he has to stay.
He says on season 3, once you get in bed in the government, it's really hard to get out. That line's always stuck with me for some reason.
Yeah.
I don't think he meant Gilead, but obviously that could be played, either way, because it's, again, ambiguous. But,
But he is essential to Mayday, and he is essential to the resistance.
That's true.
And him staying there, being able to relay the intel he has, is the biggest chance of success to bring it down.
Exactly.
It's with his intel. So that could be the reason he stays.
I agree.
Bruce, if you're listening,
tell us.
Can you please elaborate further on the statement of once you get in bed with the government, it's hard to get out? Please, please, please.
Season 5.
Show us Nick and the resistance.
But my problem with 409, as much as, yes, Nick should have gotten in the car and gone, so that is a problem I have, is that she didn't ask him. I think that was a mistake in the writing, because that in no scenario would she not have asked him, knowing that he can get in the car with her and go to Canada with his family.
I don't think she would have.
I don't think she was in the right mindset anyway. I think she's too traumatized, and I still don't think she can't process things. So, finding out that she's going to see Nick, and we don't know how much time passed between her and Luke talking and then her and Nick actually seeing each other, but it seemed like it was pretty quick. So I feel like, because realistically, I don't think she would ask, but I don't think she'd ask right now.
Why?
Because I think because she's still, I think even though she doesn't, she's still trying to process her and Luke, right?
But it's his safety. It's her baby daddy. It's like, it's her baby's dad. Like, she would want him with her baby, whether she was with Luke or not. She would want him safe in Canada with Holly, because that's always been his dream. I'm not talking about the love triangle. I'm talking about his safety and the fact that he can get out of Gilead right now by sitting in that car.
And that he does deserve to watch his daughter grow up.
Right.
Yeah. Like, love triangle. Yeah. If she's with Luke, whatever.
Fine. Yeah.
He deserves to be a father to his daughter.
But I think it's also because in that scene, like, they're happy to see each other, right? And they're trying, like, Nick obviously doesn't tell her about the ring because he doesn't want to ruin the moment. And maybe her not asking him to leave is because they're both in so much pain. Like, even though it's a happy scene, it's heartbreaking because they're both, like, the longing is so palpable, and they're so I think they're both just so full of regret and, like, what could it be if we actually work together? Like, they can't even say I love you to each other before they leave. Like, he can't even, like, when they're leaving or saying goodbye, he can't even open his eyes and look at her because they're in so much pain. So I think saying out loud, I want you to to leave is too painful at that moment for them.
But that's risking his life. I think that she would worry about his safety and being with his daughter more than the pain of their romance.
Mm-hmm. It's a more logical for her to ask. It's a logical thought. I get what you're saying, but I'm, emotionally speaking, maybe she was even scared that he was going to say no, which is ridiculous. But like, I didn't really see her asking him. It annoys me because let's go.
Yeah, but I feel like in the car, like, maybe I'm reading Lizzie's face acting wrong, but like you can see, like I felt like she even like looked over her shoulder, like, should I go back and get him? Like that's how I interpreted it. So
well, she said that in an interview, or an interview or a podcast or something. She said that she hurried up to leave because she wanted to go back and get him.
Yeah.
So like I think it was there, but like Scarlett, I agree with what you said. I think it's too scary of a thought to ask, and they weren't emotionally ready they weren't emotionally ready for that, I think.
But when it's a life or death situation, like you don't wait until you're ready.
Yeah, but she also knows he's a commander, and again, like there's going to be consequences even if they got into her car, Luke's car, and drove wherever the heck they were going to go. Like I think that's still a risk, right? And there's still going to be consequences, so it's not just like we're going to drive to the coast.
But you can have the conversation. That's all I'm saying. He'll say no because he has a wife and a household, so he'll probably have to say no. But they could have the conversation, and it makes no sense not to if she thinks she's not gonna like see him again.
But I think if they meet up, like if they get a chance to meet up in season 5 and a little bit more time passes, I could see this conversation possibly happening because I think they would be in a better. Well, I think she would at least be in a different emotional state that maybe she could have that. She was, however she got, I really want to know how she got in contact with him to get help with Fred. But obviously there's some way she can contact him. So I think knowing, like at that point, they never thought they'd see each other again. And then they see each other in the next episode. So I think now knowing like that's possible, maybe she'd be in a better spot to ask him, like, what's up? Why aren't you leaving? Please come stay with me in no man's land, or wherever.
In the cabin.
Yeah. I mean, yes, June loves Nick, but like he is like one of her own, or like her only like ties to Hannah. So I don't think she's using Nick, but like maybe she's hesitant to ask him because, obviously
he just gave her all that information.
Yeah, exactly. So I could see her being torn because of Hannah.
Even when she asked Nick, when, she was nervous about asking him for help at all.
Right. And she started
I don't want to put you at risk. So like she definitely wasn't using it. Even when Luke asked her or told whatever.
I do not think she's ever used him ever.
I also think that maybe they both have this mindset that they weren't meant to be. So, I mean, I know that's kind of like something small, but Nick never thought that he was going to end up with June. Like he let her go. Everything he did was to let her go. Like, which when I realized that the other day and I thought about that in one of those rabbit holes, I'm like, oh my God, like, fuck. Anyway, and her goal was to go back to her life. Like I always say, like, you think you're going to go back to the way things were. That's how people think that's the best. And then once you get it, you can't go back because everything's just changed so much. So I think maybe that's their mindset in this whole situation.
She had already resigned herself on that bridge that they were never going to see each other again.
And so did he.
Yeah, she gets to Canada, still doesn't think she's ever going to see him again. Like it seems like she's actively trying not to think of him in Canada because just thinking about him would destroy her. So when Luke says that and she's just like, you could see in her face that she's like, fuck, like I didn't even think that was an option. Now you want me to see him. And then he says the same thing, like, here's the paper or the folder. I never thought I'd get to give this to you in person. So I think like if you love somebody that much and you resign yourself somehow that you're never going to see each other again, and now you get like what, who knows, 10 minutes, 30 minutes with each other. It's a hard swing to all of a sudden be like, oh, well, I never thought we'd see each other again. And now we're together. Like, let's just run away,
Still disagree.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm team Kate for once.
I'm not here alone for once. Thank you, Marigold. I'll take it. But no, it's good that we have different opinions.
I want this conversation to happen in season 5. Pretty please.
Yes. It needs to.
It needs to.
Yeah. She needs to at least ask him.
Right. Like I'll give them the out in 409, but I'm not giving them an out in season 5. It needs to happen.
Yes.
I'm surprised you guys didn't mention that Fred grabbed her belly again in this episode.
Yeah.
I try to forget.
No, that's the thing. Like I will never, ever, ever stop being bitter about Nick not touching her big belly.
But when they're getting out of the, I thought at first when they were getting out of the ambulance that he puts his hands on his belly, but that would have been way too much for Gilead. And you don't see it in the shot, but they're standing in front of each other. So when I was watching it yesterday, I was like trying to see, like if I'm going to get up and I'm going to be able to see the wider shot, obviously not. But thinking about you guys saying it, I'm like, could he be touching his belly here? But there was way too many people. Like there's no way he would have done that.
Well, that didn't stop the hard eyes.
Well, I was thinking maybe when he was holding her hand, like he's got his one hand on her back and the other one with her hand in front. And I was like, well, maybe because they're already holding hands and he's quote unquote helping her up the stairs, maybe his hand was still kind of on her belly while he was holding it. So I'm going to keep that in my head as maybe that was the moment.
Got to reward yourself with what you think.
Well, they didn't show us. So
I know.
I'm
Just got to make it up.
Okay, I think that's a wrap on our deep dive into season 2, episode 10 of The Handmaid's Tale. Come back next Monday for season 2, episode 11. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
You know, I think about us, the three of us, what we could be. I think about it all the time.
Please. It's terrible.
No, it's not. I know June. She's my friend. I care about her. How's her day going? You look pretty.
Thanks. I wore it just for you. Her father's a driver named Nick. He helped me to survive. Yes, you can, because I can't lose you.
I'm not gonna let anything happen to you.
What about you?
Your girlfriend is a badass.